Game face on when I chase like that. Yeah, I play so strong with a knife in the back. I'ma swing home run like a baseball bat. Gonna see me rise, you can hate on that. I don't play both sides, doing me no cap. I'm a ride or die for my dreams on tap. I'ma fly real high, you ain't see me slack.
Hello and welcome to today's Brand X Reviews video, and in this one I'm going to be continuing a trend on this channel at which I talk about records, James Bond soundtracks that is, on record, on LP, on vinyl, whatever the trendy way of saying records is. Those records when I was a kid, for some reason we started referring to them as vinyls, even though that's not even a word. But that's a side issue anyway. Obviously on this channel, if you've been following, I've been covering my collection. I haven't shown it extensively, but this is a new edition, so I wanted to get this one reviewed fairly quickly because it's still fresh in my mind. I've just played this now and pretty happy with it, to be honest. I'll explain the reasons for this one specifically because obviously this is one of the soundtracks that's been available on record anyway, generally for this movie. But not this version as far as I was aware anyway. The only version that I'd owned was this standard version. I had this on CD back in the day as well. This is a re-release. If you own this soundtrack to this movie anyway, it's probably this version that you've got. I'm going to keep this one handy just to compare the track listings as well. So I'm sure you're familiar with this one. What makes this one a bit more special is the fact that this is kind of like an extended version, and we'll get into the specifics of it, but with some original recordings as featured in the actual movie. So let's have a quick look at it anyway. I'm just going to show you the actual record itself as well, because as you can see here, it's got this hype sticker, Wax Time in colour, 180 gram coloured vinyl, limited edition. So let's have a look at the actual record itself. So as I say, this comes in a coloured edition, which is a nice red colour as you've got here. The actual label itself, if I can focus in, it's pretty much the same on both sides. Obviously, the track listings differ, but the general pattern of it is as it is there. The inner sleeve, minor detail, but to me it's a big winning point, is that the inner sleeve has this plastic inner lining, which just avoids you getting bits of paper and scuff marks on the record itself, which I've talked about previously on previous videos. Does my head in when, especially when you're paying a lot for a record and you get cheap paper inner lining, inner sleeve, sorry. But this, when it has a plastic inner lining like this, it helps with static and obviously gets rid of the factor, or it diminishes the factor for getting paper flakes all over your record as well, which is very annoying. So this one was very nice. It came through brand new. It was very clean. So yeah, pretty happy with it. The artwork itself on the actual cover, as you can see, is very nice. Good quality. The way that the sticker has been placed doesn't cover up any of the text as well on there as well, which is pretty nice, because the way I've cut into this, I've just used a knife basically to cut down the seam there so I could slide the record out but also keep the plastic as a covering. So let's have a look at the tracks. So what I'll do to compare them, I'll just do it this way. So as you can see on the original record, I think we had, how many tracks did we have there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on side 1, and on side B you had the same as well. So 18 tracks for this original record. That's this one. So 18 tracks listed, whereas on this one we've got 22, and you can see those tracks listed there. I'll just get a bit closer up so you can see which ones we've got and the length of them. Obviously a lot of the tracks are the same, but it's got a lot of different ones, and we'll get into the specifics of it. So if you compare side by side, sides A, and then just move it up slightly, you can compare side B or side 2 as it's got it listed. Some of the tracks on this one, they actually seem to be lifted from the actual movie itself. The tarantula theme, which is the one in the movie, obviously you know which scene that is, it actually has the sound effect of Bond killing the tarantula with the slipper or the shoe, whatever it was. So I'm not quite sure how that's been kind of moved on to this, but it definitely had that sound in there, that sound effect as well. So, but it's quite interesting. Now, the actual writing on here as well, on the reverse, obviously, you've got these very nice photographs. There's quite a bit of writing there. I'll just get the specific details up here. The original liner notes, that was the narration that was in the original trailer. If you've seen that, obviously, you'll remember the way that was read in the trailer. Some technical details here. So tracks A1 and B11, that would be the James Bond theme. Obviously, Vic Flick was someone who was on the electric guitar for those. And if you're a James Bond music fan, Vic Flick's name will be very familiar, almost as much as John Barry and Monty Norman, or even Shirley Bassey. So, and then obviously there's a bit more information there. It was recorded in Hollywood, California in 1962. And this is a record. I checked this out on Discogs because to me this is a new release. This got a re-release quite recently and I had it on pre-order, but I'd never seen this one in the shops. But it originally came out in 2018 apparently. I checked that out on Discogs and yeah, that happens to be the case. So there we go. Now this on the back, most of it just kind of generically talks about the film itself, but some of this writing here, this bit here, and then from kind of here where my thumb is, and all this, I'll just read that out to you now. This release contains a complete original soundtrack from the first cinematographic version of one of Ian Fleming's James Bond novels, Dr. No. Filmed in Jamaica, it starred Sean Connery in his first Bond role, along with Ursula Andress, Joseph Wiseman, and Jack Lordames. Based on the 1958 novel by the same name, it was adapted by Richard Maybaum, Joanna Harwood, and Berkeley Mather, and directed by Terence Young. The music, composed by Monty Norman, marked the debut of the iconic James Bond theme, performed by the John Barry Orchestra, and also featured famous Jamaican tunes featuring Byron, Lee, and the Dragonaires. The text on the back kind of goes on for a bit, but I'll kind of skip the stuff about the movie. We then come back to talking about the music. So, Monty Norman was invited to write the soundtrack because Broccoli liked his work on the 1961 theatre production Belle, the music about murderer Hawley Harvin Crippen. Norman was busy with musicals and only accepted to do the music for Dr. No after Saltzman allowed him to travel along with the crew to Jamaica. The most famous composition in the soundtrack is the James Bond theme, which is heard in the gun barrel sequence. It was written by Norman based on a previous composition of his. John Barry, who would later go on to compose the music for 11 Bond films, arranged the James Bond theme, but was uncredited, except for the credit of his orchestra playing the final piece. It has occasionally been suggested that Barry, not Norman, composed the James Bond theme. This argument has ever been the subject of 2 court cases, the most recent in 2001, which found in favour of Norman. The theme, as written by Norman and arranged by Barry, was described by another Bond film composer, David Arnold, as bebop swing vibe coupled with that vicious, dark, distorted electric guitar. Definitely an instrument of rock and roll, it represented everything about the character that you would want. It was cocky, swaggering, confident, dark, dangerous, suggestive, sexy, unstoppable, and he did it in 2 minutes. So yeah, it's a very good version to have in your collection if you're a Bond album collector, and the soundtrack to Dr. No isn't quite as iconic as a lot of the later ones. Obviously, the filmmakers are still kind of finding their feet in this one, and this film score doesn't really have the same kind of sound as we established in later movies. Specifically from Russia with Love was a bit more bombastic, and then Goldfinger kind of entrenched the James Bond sound. From there on in, Dr. No, as an afterthought, kind of sounds a little bit more unique in its own way, in a very old style of filmmaking and movie score composing. Definitely fits in with an older style of filmmaking. But I think that's what kind of makes it special in a lot of ways, and it's a pretty good score in its own right. And on here, you've got some of the original tracks that were in the movie that you didn't get on that original soundtrack that we'd had. So if you are a collector, don't be put off by the fact that Doctor No might not be one of your favourite or maybe your least favourite soundtrack. This version specifically, if you don't own it, get this one. It is the better of the two. But as a collector, I own both anyway, and I'm very happy with both. But this one obviously is the nicer one on a number of levels. So anyway, I will leave it there. If this video is interested, you obviously leave a like. You can subscribe to the channel, but also check out our playlist on the channel, because we do have a specific channel, a specific playlist dedicated to James Bond music, most of which are my own videos where I've talked about the actual records and some other rare bits and pieces as well that I've collected. So, and I'll be adding to it as well. So there will be more videos like this to come. I've done some quite recently as well. So check that out anyway. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching.